After editing the video, I realized it was a lot longer than I intended it to be. I hope that there's parts of this video that you can take and put towards your builds. Brass work is very tedious and it is time consuming. So if you want to go this route with your builds, or you're wanting to get into this, I hope that you can get something from this video. So without further ado, let's get into the video. How's it going, everyone? Clint with Rock Haven Customs. So we're going to do a little bit of soldering in this video. Just to let you know, there is a honeybee that is flying around in here, and I hate to kill him, so I'm just going to let him buzz around. But we're going to build this planetary, and this, I guess you'd call it the pivoting part of the axle. As I showed you in the last video, the disc cutter, and what I did, I took a center punch and took a Dremel and just kind of cleaned it up a little bit so it fit inside the hole a little better, and I center punched the disc before I punched it out. So I've got to cut this out, and this planetary is made up of 3 different pieces, actually 4. You have the axle that goes through the tire and the wheel. You have this, which that slides into so it will spin. And then you have this piece, a square tubing that this fits inside of, and then this piece fits inside of that. So I'm just going to kind of try to do this on video to show you some of the procedures of what it was, of how I got to build that, and some soldering techniques and kind of what I use. First off, I've got to drill this disc out, and I'm using 3 different drill bits. As you can see, here's 2, and the third one's in my hand here. And the reason, this is kind of tedious doing this, but the reason I'm doing 3 different drill bits is so that hopefully I can drill this and be able to get my tube to run through. So there's the first one. Got a hole started for it. So we'll take that bit out. We'll go to the second bit. So there's your hole in your disc, which now that fits on top of it, or fits through it. So the next procedure will be, I'm going to solder this onto this, which will be your axle for your rim to slide in, which makes it look like the planetary housing. I mean, I'm just going off of pictures, what I've seen off the internet. I'm not sure 100% if it's accurate. But that's what I'm going with. So we are going to solder this on, and I'm going to zoom the camera in so you can see a little bit better. I get you down here where y'all can see. believe you can see that pretty well. And I'm going to try to do this so that it's in focus. Let me get my iron all set up here. All right. Let me move some stuff here. That's ready. Okay, so this stuff I found, it's this right here. And I found it off at eBay. It's made by Allied Manufacturing Corporation, but it's called Tix Flux. I don't know. So this is the flux that I use for soldering, and it has a little brush, kind of like a fingernail polish or fingernail paint, or yeah, fingernail polish. So we need to try to get it just as straight as we can. And I'm not worried about if it sticks out the back side. That it doesn't bother me on that. And let me zoom out just a little bit so y'all can see a little bit better how I'm doing this. So I usually brace stuff with my fingers so it doesn't, my pinky there, so it doesn't allow things to move around too much. And once you start getting this hot, you'll start hearing things sizzle. So I'm just kind of working this to get it hot real quick. Now, when you're doing it, if you don't have it perfectly straight, it's okay. Because what I will do is set that flat. See if I can get it so y'all can see. And I'll heat this back up, and I can push down on this granite and get it flat. That's why I like using this granite as a base to work off of, because it's I mean, it's true as it can be. It's got a little bit that I don't like, so I'm gonna heat it back up a little bit. Let it cool. And I know it's hard to get the camera where you can see. And like I said, if it's not completely true, it's okay. I'm gonna hit it one more time on this side. Get this side to come down a little bit. And like I said, this is very time consuming doing all this, because you've got to, that's not bad. I guess it helps if I get into focus. It's pretty straight. Like I said, if it's not 100%, I'm not too concerned, because we will take our Dremel here and let's clean it up a little bit. All right, I'll show you what we got. So there's your hub for your axle. It's soldered all around it, and of course, when I soldered it, it flowed into where this hole was in this disc here. So the solder's inside of the disc. So our next thing is we've got to make this part here is way too big for this tube. So that's why I put this piece on next, and that makes that part. So then when our axle's on, when you're looking at it, you can see that. Of course, all this needs to be cleaned up, but you can see that it's up against that. So there's this part that's allowing the wheel to stay on, which would be the tube of the axle itself, and then you got your tube, and then your planetary, what I'm calling planetary, it may be just a drum of the axle. And then this piece here is what this slides into, and this part that I just slid on is where you make the part for your pivot. Of course, all that's still got to have the mounts put on to put your tie rods on. And I believe these are hydraulic. So I am going to, because this is going to get to be a long video, and I don't want it to get super long and boring. So I'm going to get this cut, soldered on, and then I'll show you what it's like, looks like, and then we'll put the last piece on here. I'll get it soldered up, and then I'll kind of show you how I go about forming it and making it so it fits on the end of your axle itself. But we've also got to put this other piece we have to make this piece, because this is smaller than that, which that's where the second piece of this, which is a part that slid over the tube, that fits over this axle like so, and then you just cut it and then form it. And if you can see, it's got a radius on it. It's kind of rounded around, so that will pivot back and forth. So let me get this part finished up, and then I'll come back and show you that. All right, real quick. So I cut my piece off. It's just a very small piece that will go almost up to the end of that. I'm gonna leave just a little bit of gap, that way I can solder it, and you can kind of see some detail into it. So let me get this soldered up, then we'll make the next piece. All right, so we have got this cut off. We got our, what I'm calling planetary, our axle tube, and then this piece slides into that piece. And this part is what your pivot will be. So I'm gonna put it on my blocks here and set it out kind of where I want it. I've already soldered or fluxed the inner piece of the tube. So hopefully this will flow right inside, and we'll get a nice solder joint. But the bad thing about doing this is because this steel is going to pull the heat from your solder, but hopefully it will suck into the other part and allow everything to get soldered. So I'm going to flip it over a little bit. Just continue to roll this around to get it soldered all the way around, just to make sure. And I'm not worried if I get solder on the outside, because we can always come back and sand all that off and clean it up. All right, I believe we've got all that. Let it cool for 1 second. And check her out. See, yeah, it's soldered. So I will have to go around and clean all that up, but it allowed the solder to flow inside all that. So let me get this cleaned up, and then we'll start cutting it to make the outside part of your steering. Okay, got it all cleaned up. So now I have to, this is the right side, I have to start shaping it to make the same design as that one. So what I will do is I will take my little cutoff wheel on this Dremel here, and I'll start cutting into that, getting the relief for that as far back as I can to get them pretty much the same. Once I get that, then I can start cleaning up in here and up here so that it will fit on the axle, main axle. And once we get all that, we will drill our holes for the pivot, and then we will fix this in to make it so both sides steer. So let me get this cut out, and we'll go to the next step. So we got this cut out. I was just going to show you this using the vice grips to hold it, and it worked really well because your vice grips have got your teeth in it, and it actually lets them discs set in there, and you can actually clamp on all of it to hold it, because this will get pretty hot. So now the next step is I've got to make sure it's the same length as this one here that I just dropped. Now we gotta get we've got the, try and get this on camera. We've got the openings about the same. So now I've got to cut the length of this part, because this one's just a little too long. But what I may do is go ahead and drill my hole. As you can see, it's a little long. I may go ahead and drill my hole in the center so I can get this part already drilled and it'll be ready, and I'll just have to put it on the main axle, slide it on, and drill down through it. So I'm gonna get this hole drilled, and it's just I think a 20 thousandths drill bit. That's what a pin is. I went to Walmart, I believe, where I got these. I don't know what all, any kind of hobby place or Walmart. And these pins, I use these a lot because they have a flat top and they're pretty wide. And it's also what I use for cab lights, because I can take these and take a Dremel and form each side of it to a triangle, and then paint these, you know, just dip them in orange paint. And usually I put a little paint down on a piece of cardboard and I'll dip them down in it, and when you pull it up, it makes kind of a teardrop on this, so when you set your light in, it has a kind of a dome shape from where you've pulled it out of the paint. But this is what I use for holding parts together. I like these, have a little bit bigger head, and they're also flat. So I've got to get the hole drilled for that, and then we will finish the other side of the axle. All right, we got these little pieces made. They're pretty close to the same. You know, when you're building this, it's hard to duplicate it to a T, but you know, once they're painted up, primered and painted and cleared, they look pretty good. So, got holes drilled, got these made. Like I said, they're a little bit off, but you won't never really notice it, especially as small as it is. So what I've done on our axle here, I've just put a line where I want that to stop, this piece here, which is going to be the part that this sits on, so it'll pivot. So we've got to put this piece on. So all I did was just drew a line on it. I'll put a little bit of flux on here, and I'll stop it where I don't see the line once I get it. What I may do is mark this also on this side of this with a Sharpie. That way I know how much to cut off to, and like I said, I just eyeball that to make it look about the same. So I'm going to mark this real quick, and we'll flux it and get that piece soldered on. So that's about a rough estimate of where we're going to go with it. Zoom y'all in so y'all can see. Right there. So we're just going to put a little flux, because I want this to go inside this tube. So I'm just putting a little dab of that inside there. And we're going to make that up. I think I'm going to set this back on a block here. Another block on top. That way, because this really needs to be picked up just a shade, because it's a little loose inside the main housing. So we're going to just shim it just a little bit so that it tries to keep it straight. It looks pretty good. As you can see, which is probably hard, We'll get you in a little closer. You can see my line that I put on the main housing here, and a line there. That way, you know how much to cut off when you go cut off of the end. So I'm gonna see if y'all are in the picture. So and if it's a little crooked, I can adjust this once I get it soldered. I can come in here and kind of tweak it. I just want to, if you can hear the solder on the other end, that's coming off the other end of the tube there. Like I said, this is where you're learning your iron and everything. You got to make sure that you don't heat too much, because then you'll start melting stuff on the other side of what you've already soldered. I'll roll it one more time, make sure its bottom's good. All right, so that's done. We know where our joint is, right there. You can still see the green there. Let me zoom back out. So you can still see the line right there. That's where it needs to be. So you need to look at it, kind of make sure it looks kind of straight, which is not bad. I can live with that. That's off a little bit. By the time we cut it, like I said, we're cutting that little bit off right there to make this part. So if it's off a little bit, it's no big deal, because everything is going to be pivoting on that. So all it's going to do is just pivot back and forth. So let me get this cleaned up, cut off, and then get the hole drilled, put it back together, and see how it looks. All right, so we got everything together on it. Both sides are made now. I've still got to build the tie rod in, brackets and linkage on that, but that will be another day. So it does pivot back and forth, and it oscillates. You know, if you was on a hillside, it will pivot. Of course, I haven't got none of that glued up. I'm still working on everything, but I think that will work. Once everything gets fixed in place, should be exactly how I was wanting it to be. I've got to figure out the axle placement, but looking at pictures and stuff, the middle of the tire looks like it's at the front of the grill, but I've got to look at more pictures and figure that out. But also I've got to cut this axle off. I've just got it stuck in there, but as you can see, we've got both sides made up. Like I said, we'll start doing more soldering stuff. The grill is going to be out of styrene. There's that gum honeybee. I've got the styrene somewhere that I was going to use. And as far as the soldering gun or soldering iron, I really love this soldering iron. It's a lot nicer than what I had. But this is the styrene that I'm gonna use. It's that there, but it's the closest pattern as far as the grill, because on those style grills, they had like a louvered look. I've got another 7800 over here that I can pop out real quick. Pop this one out. I bought 2 of these in case I messed one up. I would have a second one. But as you can see in this grill sticker, it does have some louver style in it. So I will probably shoot that. I don't even know what I did with it. Oh, here it is. When I shoot this, I will probably shoot it. I will mix the color up on it. Just to kind of, as you can see on, I don't know if it's going to show up, but you can see it's kind of a gray, but then where it sets in, it's black. So when I build this, I may take and shoot this like a light gray, or not a light gray, but a darker gray. I'll mix something up, and then where the lines are, I'll come back in with like a toothpick and some black paint, or get a Sharpie and get a new one, and kind of like these. I really enjoy using these. These are these fine tip Sharpies here. And so I might can take one of those and kind of just go down the lines there. It's not going to be much, but it's enough to, you know, make it stand out. Make it look like it's recessed in there a lot more. I've got to figure out the lights, how the lights are going to go back in it, to make it look like a set of headlights. It's going to be some trial and error on it. I may just, I don't know yet. Haven't got that far. I've got an idea, but not sure yet. But when we get to that, we'll cross it. But the next thing I want to do is get all the steering made up for this, so that it's all tied together, and get it mounted to the tractor. That way, of course, I won't set the pin in the center section, but at least the pivot point, the mount, is back underneath the tractor. And I mean, these are just gaudy and big and everything, where I don't even want to flip this over, but see if I can hold this and it'll stay together. You can tell that that's a lot thinner, and it's not as big, so that will work. But there's a lot left to do on this little tractor, so like I said, I'm gonna try to stay focused on this. It's been real busy this week, and it's getting pretty out, trying to get stuff outside cleaned up and nice. And then in the afternoons, when I get off work, I got yards I mow, so it's just, thought it wouldn't be like this, but it's just turned wide open. But I will continue to at least try to get one video a week out on this. I've got my son this weekend, my little one, so spend a little time with him. We gotta go pick up sticks in the yard, so he's gonna drive the Ranger around the yard while I pick up sticks on the yard. It's about a mile down the road from where I live, so he's gonna want to do that and excited to do that. So we're gonna try to get that taken care of. But I will try to get something else this coming week I've got a few jobs I got to look at, but other than that, we're going to stay focused on this little tractor till it's completely done. And like I said, I'm going to try to continue to do more soldering videos. That way people can learn, because there's nothing on the internet really about it. So I've got semis that needs to be put together still and painted, but right now I'm gonna focus on one thing at a time, get that done, and then we'll move to the next project. So hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.